Let's get right into it. Number 8. The Eerie Void. Imagine sitting alone in a quiet room. No TV humming, no cars outside, no clock ticking, just nothing. You'd think your brain would be thrilled. Finally, peace. But no. Instead, your brain starts acting like silence is a personal insult. This is because humans are basically wired to be suspicious of quiet. In evolutionary terms, silence in the wild usually meant that predators were nearby, like the entire jungle going mute because something big and toothy was lurking. So when things get eerily quiet, your ancient lizard brain starts whispering, "Hey, something's about to eat us," which is super helpful when you're in, say, a savanna. Not so much when you're in your own kitchen at 2 a.m. This also explains why so many people leave a TV or fan running just to sleep. You're not just fighting boredom, you're literally soothing your primal fear of being hunted. Because sure, a white noise machine probably won't stop a tiger, but your brain's bad at logic when it's scared. So silence feels unnatural, because it is, at least to our species. Evolution handed you a nervous system that treats quiet like a death sentence. Basically, your ancestors survived by freaking out every time the crickets stopped chirping. And now you do too, just with fewer tigers and more existential dread. Number 7. The thought flood. Some people say they love silence. They're lying. What they really love is the idea of silence, not the reality. Because once it's truly quiet, you know what happens? Your brain finally has room to dump a truckload of thoughts on you. And they're not good thoughts. Oh no. Silence is when your mental playlist goes from top 40 hits to every regret you've ever had. Unplugged edition. You remember embarrassing moments from 14 years ago. You worry about the future. You imagine all the ways you'll probably die. Thanks, brain. You're a real pal. This is called rumination, and psychologists say silence can actually amplify it. Your brain craves stimulation because stimulation keeps it busy. Take that away, and suddenly your mind is throwing a surprise party for all your darkest insecurities. That's why you scroll your phone during awkward pauses, why elevator rides feel like eternity, and why a quiet dinner makes you want to scream. Your brain cannot stand the sound of its own thoughts, so it fills the space with noise, any noise, just to shut itself up. Number 6, the social alarm bell. You're in a group conversation. Someone makes a joke, everyone laughs, and then silence. Long, awkward, deafening silence. You feel your skin crawl, your heart thump, and suddenly you're babbling about the weather just to fill the void. That's because silence in social settings is basically your brain's way of screaming, "Danger! Rejection ahead!" As social animals, humans are wired to avoid anything that might signal being left out of the group. Back in the caveman days, getting kicked out of the tribe didn't just mean fewer party invites. It meant you froze to death or got eaten. So, thousands of years later, when you're sitting in a quiet conference room after saying something that didn't land, your nervous system floods with the same primal panic chemicals it used to reserve for wolves, which is why people would rather blurt out something dumb than endure 3 seconds of quiet. It doesn't help that we're conditioned from birth to equate silence with awkwardness. Teachers, parents, TV sitcoms, everyone drilled it into us that silence equals failure. But honestly, sometimes quiet just is. Still, good luck convincing your survival brain of that next time your date goes quiet after your killer pun. Number 5, the auditory hallucination party. Here's where it gets properly creepy. Spend enough time in total silence and your brain starts making noise. Not cute little bird songs either. Full-on auditory hallucinations. People who spend extended time in soundproof rooms, and yes, this has actually been tested, often report hearing faint voices, whispers, buzzing, even phantom music. Why? Because your auditory cortex hates having nothing to process. In the absence of external noise, it starts amplifying internal signals. Blood flowing, joints creaking, even random neural firing. The world's quietest room, an anechoic chamber, is famous for freaking people out. Most people can't last more than 30 minutes inside. Why? Because the silence is so complete, you start hearing your own body, your heartbeat, your breathing, your stomach, at ear-splitting volume. Some people even claim it feels like the room is pressing in on them. Your brain just isn't built for silence. It craves input. And if it doesn't get it, it will happily fabricate its own creepy soundtrack. Which is fun if you're into ghosts, but less fun if you just wanted a little peace and quiet. Number 4, the time warp effect. You've probably noticed this one before. Silence makes time feel weird, like painfully slow. You're sitting in a waiting room, no music, no chatter, just the dull hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of your own impatient breathing. You glance at the clock, swear 5 minutes have passed, but nope, 17 seconds. This is because your brain uses external sounds and rhythms to mark the passage of time. When you remove those cues, time perception gets wonky. Without background noise, your brain starts focusing on its own internal processes. And since those don't move at the same pace as, say, a ticking clock or conversation, you feel like time is crawling. It's the same reason silent retreats or isolation tanks feel like eternity. You go in thinking, oh, this will be relaxing. An hour later, you're convinced you've been in there for at least 3 years, and maybe missed the invention of flying cars. Ironically, it's this effect that makes silence a kind of torture in some settings, because dragging out time amplifies the stress. Which brings us nicely to number 3, the weaponized quiet. Here's where silence gets really dark. Throughout history, humans have used silence as a weapon. Solitary confinement, psychological torture, the silent treatment, all of these exploit our deep discomfort with being ignored, alone, and unstimulated. Prison studies show that extreme isolation and silence can cause hallucinations, anxiety, and even full-blown mental breakdowns. Why? Because without sound and social contact, the brain has no feedback, no sense of connection, and starts to eat itself alive. Even on a smaller scale, the silent treatment works because it taps into our fear of rejection. We're wired to depend on others, so being met with silence feels like social death. Which is why even the strongest among us eventually crack and beg, just say something. It's a reminder that silence isn't just awkward. It can also be deeply unsettling, even cruel. And yet, we keep underestimating it, thinking it's just nothing. But, as it turns out, the thing is actually something. And it's terrifying. Number 2, the existential echo chamber. Ah yes, the final boss of silence. You're sitting alone, no distractions, no noise, just yourself. And that's when it hits you. Oh no, I have to actually think about my life now. Silence is terrifying because it forces you to confront the one thing you've been running from with Spotify playlists, Netflix binges, and endless doom scrolling, your own thoughts. Without noise, there's nothing shielding you from those big, uncomfortable questions. Am I happy? What am I even doing? Did I peak in 8th grade? Psychologists call this existential anxiety. Your brain, finally free of external input, starts gnawing on those deep, dark fears about meaning, purpose, mortality, all the fun stuff. And it's not just a theory. Studies show that many people will literally choose mild electric shocks over sitting alone in silence for 15 minutes. That's right. People would rather zap themselves than sit with their own thoughts. Because silence doesn't just leave space for noise, it leaves space for you. And sometimes that's the scariest sound of all. Number 1, the unavoidable truth. Here's the thing about silence. You can't actually escape it forever. Sure, you can drown it out with podcasts, blast music, keep the chatter going, but silence is always waiting. Like an awkward party guest in the corner, quietly sipping punch, just waiting for your playlist to end. Why? Because silence is the sound of reality. It's what's left when the distractions stop. It's uncomfortable because it's honest. It doesn't flatter you, it doesn't entertain you, and it sure as hell doesn't let you forget what's really going on inside that over-caffeinated skull of yours. So, yeah, we're terrified of silence. And maybe we should be. But maybe, just maybe, it's worth sitting with every now and then. Because under all that discomfort, all those creepy thoughts and primal alarms, there's a weird little kernel of clarity hiding in the quiet. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.